Beautiful Chavrusa style learning. And it's a great honor to have with us Rabbi Nathanson, who is the kashrus expert on behalf of all of us. I know that every day, a couple of times, the kashrus questions that are asked to me, I forward to Rabbi Nathanson, and I very much appreciated the responses that you give in a very timely fashion. Hashem should bless you, to have gezund, and to continue with your avodas hakodesh for many, many more years to come. Without any further ado, the great Rabbi Nathanson. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to give you the Zoom mic because the whole item is on. No, you keep this.
I'm gonna do it too. It's further on the roof. What do you do with two? The same as one. Opa. What? Yeah, would help. I didn't print off the shadow sheet. We can start, I think, with the questions that came in rather than my droning on.
Mommy's on the airplane. You can't talk to him.
Take the mic.
No. She's on the airplane.
You might get an Oscar for this.
Can Leah mute her Zoom? Yeah, Mendel, but you need someone who's going to be making sure that people are on mute.
All right, thank everyone for coming. We're going to begin by going through the list of questions that people have submitted earlier on. The first question that we got is the following. There are Spartan lists of products that are okay to eat without any kosher for Passover designation. These are generally any product that don't contain chametz but may contain kidneys. Are there any concerns that these products might actually contain something that's problematic?
That could have been a plan.
Being recorded.
Yeah, I understand. I'm being recorded. I have to be polite. So okay, thank you. I've only seen a few lists that are put out for the Svardish Kehilas. I'm Ashkenazi. I don't speak that language well. I did ask a couple of Rabbanim who authored these that I knew of them, so it wasn't totally embarrassing to say, what were you thinking when you did this? So they said, no, we have our reasons. That's the standard answer when someone doesn't want to answer you. We have our reasons. So we're talking about a couple of products, and I said, like, what made this product acceptable to start for Pesach? It's got high fructose corn syrup. I said, no, what do you know? It's corn syrup. Corn syrup it was good. But this is not corn syrup. It's high fructose corn syrup. It's a much sweeter item. The only way that you can make it is you take corn. Yeah, well, you take corn, right? And when you're making the syrup, which comes out of the sugar that's in the corn, turn it into high fructose corn syrup, you have to add an enzyme to it to modify it. The starch will never turn into sugar by itself. It just ain't going to happen. So you have to play with it. So I said, why don't you consider that enzyme a mimid? Because without it, it doesn't happen. And the enzyme is barley. It's comets, And that was one of we have our reasons. So I don't get it. Plain corn syrup, okay. I'm not quite sure how that conversion happens because it's still starch going into sugar, but clearly for high fructose corn syrup, they do it. Yeah, so after I got blown off a couple times on that, I spoke to one of the guys who deals with enzymes in the OU and figured, okay, so you can explain this to me. Why isn't this a problem for them? He said, They want to say it's not a maimed. Why isn't it a maimed? Maimed is something that without it, it doesn't happen. Starch will never turn into sugar by itself without this enzyme. So why wouldn't it be a maimed? And he said, I've had the same question for about 20 years. I don't understand it. And everybody says it's not an issue, but no one can point, no one was able to show him at least, black and white why. So I don't get it. I don't understand these lists. I actually just finished some messages with the rabbi in Mexico. As I asked him, I said, I have a note here that I printed, stuff I talked about 2 years ago. And I said, I have a note that says that, you want to avoid retail sugar, granulated sugar from Mexico. But I don't have a note as to why. So I asked him, is that an issue this year? Or is it all resolved, and what's the story? So he wrote back that the salt we got fixed. I said, yeah, what about the sugar? He said, if you're Ashkenazi, you shouldn't be using retail packages of sugar from Mexico. Primarily because they put starch in the bags. It's not something that we do here in the States, but they do it there. Maybe it's because of the humidity all over the country. I don't know. But he says it's generally cornstarch. But since, the Rav Kahila is Svardish, they don't really care. But for the Ashkenazim, it's not so geschmack. So the short answer, after all that droning on the Svardish list, you have to ask a Rav that deals with that. I can't figure them out.
Okay, next question. As a confident professional, what is more reliably kosher for Passover? Food made in a home kitchen or food made in a commercial manufacturer certified by the OU?
Rabbi, can you please
Hopefully they're both
repeat
good.
can you repeat the question before you answer? Because we couldn't hear the
So
question.
the question was,
Thanks.
basically, are you better off with food made at home or food made in a factory? So clearly there's what to be said for food made in your own house. There are lots of things that we do in factories that you would never dream of doing at home, or if you dreamt of doing it at home, you shouldn't dream of doing it at home. Your average home kitchen, you don't make parve, then make milchigs, then make treif, and then kosher, and go back and do the same thing next week. Not everybody does that, but it's a normal sequence of events. I don't quote psukim well, but one of the ones that always comes to mind is Ein Sham Makams Ein Sham Meis. There was no place where you didn't find anybody dead. So what does that mean? There's rarely an industrial production where you don't have to ask a shaila somewhere. And it gets paskins. Either it's mutter and you can go on, or sorry Charlie, start over again. A lot of those questions don't come up at home, and the more things that you make yourself. This is I don't know. This is a laboratory crowd I'm speaking to. I don't know. Okay, so laboratory crowd, we tend to minimize what we purchase for Pesach. So you're better off with stuff you can make at home. It's clearly it clearly wins out. Now it's not always possible to do everything at home, either physically, emotionally, spiritually. And people buy stuff. The standard line in Chabad always was, we don't use products, except. And I'll tell you, for doing this 30 something years now, every family has a different except. This guy does that. We would never do that. We buy that. Oh, okay. Everyone's got a different except, but better at home than elsewhere. I hope I have a job tomorrow.
Don't doubt that buying oranges for Pesach is better than squeezing your own. If you can orange juice, there's no hands that touch the whole process from the beginning to the end.
Maybe someone else said it, but it doesn't matter. It's interesting thing.
Well, so
Okay.
no, it's
So the follow-up question is
Okay.
it better to buy Tropicana orange juice, which is manufactured, as opposed to making freshly squeezed orange juice in your house?
Is it better?
Yeah, I would say it's better, but just lopped out the concept of cooking everything at home is gonna, be more beneficial to yourself.
I have no idea what that means. Okay. So, so industrial orange juice is rarely the same as you make at home. In America, orange. It's not- Concentrate from Brazil, right? So, not from the Pacifica Tropicana, as I recall, is not from concentrate. So it's fresh squeezed oranges. Tropicana is under the OK. I don't work for the OK. I don't know what they do. Normal orange juice made everywhere else in the world that I've seen is orange juice. And then you add usually some tangerine oil, maybe add some orange oil. And you don't have to write anything on the label declaring it because orange is orange. So
What else do they add in?
you should wind up adding vitamin C. I don't know what it's made of, but they get stuff made miyuchat lepesach. So you know it's life is rarely as simple as the label looks. Never. I mean, the orange oil is made after they peel the orange, so they prick the skin in the little oil sacks.
The machine does it or does a Mexican?
No, a machine does it. I was at it was a Sunkist plant, and I walked in once. I mean, there was a mazel that for about 15 years, they made the lemon oil that went into the Pesach Sprite, Kolomoid Sukkos. Always changed the schedule and happened, and we kept coming out Kolomoid Sukkos. And why was I saying this? Oh, because I walked one year when I still did those things. I walk in and it's like, oh my God, what did you do here? You put in new light bulbs? It's so bright, everything's shiny. And the guy kind of cringes. We don't like to talk about this. Oh yeah, so now I really want to know what happened. They had an employee who decided, since at home I have Lemon Pledge and it makes everything look nice, and Lemon Pledge, the main ingredient is lemon oil. Here we're making lemon oil. I'll take the lemon oil, I'll clean the outside of the tanks, and it'll look nice. Well, yeah, that's technically true, but lemon oil is the most expensive lemon product they have. A 55-gallon drum at the time was selling for about $35,000. And that's what this guy was using to clean the outside of tanks. Yeah, he was, shall we say, escorted from the premises that day. So no, you're better off making orange juice at home. At least you know what goes in it.
Follow-up, Shiloh.
Oh, yeah?
Over here, back to the starch question. On
Starch.
The sugar. Yaakov Solomon wrote, wouldn't the starch in the bag be bought to the shishim or bought to Barai to Pesach? If you bought it before, if it was made before Pesach.
So the question is, would the starch be bottled before Pesach? Yes, it would be. Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to go buy something and for your Pesach kitchen that, you know, you worked your fingers to the bone and say, oh, okay, well, you know, this is bottled, that'll be bottled, this will be bottled, that'll be bottled, we bought it beforehand, you know. And then what do you do when you have to buy sugar in the middle of Pesach? If you're not boiling it. So technically, would it wind up being okay? In the long run, it technically winds up being okay. Is it something that you want to look at here to go do? No, there are other places where you can yank out the dairy for stuff that, you know, save it for something better.
Okay, out of the various types of manufactured oil that are kosher for Pesach, cottonseed, olive, etc., Is there any one that is better or worse than others?
Oil?
Oil.
Okay, so, which oil? Used to be back in the day, they used to make walnut oil and almond oil here in Los Angeles, kosher Pesach. And it was done with all the hidurim. It was just phenomenal. That was the go-to stuff. That plant decided, I guess for their own sanity, they're not doing Passover runs anymore. And the stuff, they now make, those nut oils further north. And then they ship it in bulk to New York. It gets bottled, it gets sent back here. You can buy it on the shelf. It's seen more of the country than most of us ever will. Back and forth. So the oil is one of the things that those of us in kashrus, haven't learned how to describe this in simple English that people can understand, because every year it seems to drive people crazy as to, how do you do this? We say that extra virgin olive oil that has a good, reliable, all year round hashgacha, be it an OU, be it an OK, be it a star K, Chav K, even though it's not marked for Pesach, you can use that for Pesach. So the part that confuses people, extra virgin doesn't mean extra light. It doesn't mean pure. It doesn't mean light tasting. It's all the different kinuyim that come up with a name, like you're writing out, a get for somebody, you describe this, that, and the other thing. Extra virgin olive oil. That with a decent hashgacha year round, you can use on Pesach. So the question is of why, because they know that, in oils, there's a lot of adulteration, lots of games are played, and olive oil is notorious for adulteration, forgery, right? That and fish keep the federal government very busy. Fish is gefährlich, right? But the vast majority of the fraudulent abuse, I guess, in olive oil, it has to do with country of origin. You want to say you're Italian, but you really came from Spain, or you came from Argentina and you want to label yourself as coming from somewhere else. So technically that's fraud. If you're not labeling the country of origin accurately, you're a liar. Where it grew up doesn't really change the kashrus of it. And the reason they say to buy one that has hashgacha, so at least you have a handle in those plants as to what's happening. So the places with hashgacha generally don't do animal fats. It's a very common thing in Europe. And the other oils that they could mix in if someone was really, wanted to spend their day in court, are going to be kitnius oils. And it will be bottled before Pesach, right? So there actually are some olive oils made here in California that are close to deathly expensive. 100% olive oil, extra virgin, no enzyme, no this or that. I'll give you the names of it. But they're pretty pricey. They're pretty pricey. But if you want something that just straight out no shilas, they actually make some here. Is there a follow-up on that or no?
What's the deal with buying eggs or dairy from before Pesach? If I run out of eggs on Chol Hamoed, am I allowed to go to Ralph's to restock?
Okay, so the deal with buying eggs had to do, you were afraid that maybe there's some chicken feed on the egg. Where do they go? What happened? And that would be an issue for eggs late on Pesach, not before Pesach. So, Baruch Hashem, we live in a big city. Most people don't have a chicken coop next door. So we're buying eggs, commercial eggs. They were laid probably more than likely in Arizona. They get, they're laid, they get washed, they get packaged, they get shipped. It takes a few days to get here. So clearly if you need eggs, even the first couple days of Pesach, there's just no way you're getting eggs, that were laid on Pesach. So if you're going to buy Erev Shri Pesach, I would say buy the eggs that have the soonest expiration date. Don't buy the freshest that, oh, this is the last 3 weeks. No, buy the stuff that's going to go out of date sooner, because that for sure is going to be late before Pesach. Eggs, how many weeks eggs last? I think 3. Either, yeah. So it's either Rabbi Eidlitz or the CRC in Chicago has a whole long drush as to how to read most coding on eggs, expiration dates, and where it was laid here and when it came from.
If it was born on Pesach?
It was born on Pesach, yeah, but the odds of being born on Pesach and making it to your store, and that's what you're going to buy. So you buy stuff that doesn't, that expires sooner rather than later. And if you're cooking for Shiur Shel Pesach and Shel Pesach, you're not worried that it's going to go bad in the refrigerator. Oh, milk. No, I'm good. Okay. So the same thing with milk. So milk, there's a concern whether, some comments got into the milk, it went through the cow, went all the way through. If you're buying Chol Yisrael milk, there's absolutely no Chol Yisrael milk that is made during Pesach. So it was all bottled before Pesach, and I had to make it strip here, either from Riverside or from Las Vegas or from New York, wherever it came from. So you're guaranteed that if it's Chol Yisrael, it wasn't milked on Pesach. I can't hear you. If you're buying Chol Yisrael milk, it absolutely was not milked on Pesach. Didn't happen.
In connection to milk, how do we know that the milk, is there an issue with the milk if the cow ate comes from before Pesach? That's the milk that you're using on Pesach?
It's bottled before Pesach.
Next question. Do we need a hechsher on vitamins? Seemingly vitamins are not roughly achilas healthy.
Okay, so I'm not sure what need means. Do I sound like Bill Clinton? Depends what need means. Are there heterim to take vitamins without hashgacha? Under many circumstances, yes, there are. Are you better off buying with hashgacha? Yes, you are. Why is that? There are a lot of things that go into vitamins, into both the vitamin itself and into the processing that aren't kosher. And if you would rather, if people ask, is this vitamin kosher? So the answer often is, I don't know if it's kosher. You're allowed to use it. But if you want something that is kosher, that doesn't have ingredient issues, doesn't have kalim issues, then you buy with hashgacha. They're either from the Hamish companies or they're national companies that have solid certifications that are available.
All right.
Murphy was an optimist.
Is how reliable are Kasher LePesach programs from a kashrus perspective?
I don't know if it's back east if we do or not. I think they probably do back east. They tell a story of a Rav. The question was about Pesach hotels. That as his congregants told them what they're doing for Pesach, going to a hotel, from Pesach, have a lovely time. You're staying home, kosher from Pesach, it'll be good. Rabbi Tauber here in town was talking about he got a call Chol Hamoed Pesach that they needed more silverware. How do you kosher it? Koshering during Pesach is a near impossibility. They hit more people show. I don't know how they messed it up. And he actually said, "Oh, there's an Alter Rebbe that you can rely on. Put the silverware in the oven and turn the oven on, and kosher it with libun." Of course, the catering staff wasn't happy how it looked when they finished. But, eating, going to hotels that don't have dedicated, reliable, dedicated kosher kitchens is difficult enough. And now you want to add Pesach on top of it. So one of the things that you hear from lots of Rabbanim that deal with this, and quite happily, I do not. If you're going to look for a hotel, look for one where the entire hotel is going to be kosher Pesach, not just one of the kitchens or two of the kitchens. The number of shilas that come up that way are less. Someone was telling me recently, oh yeah, like there are these guys coming from Israel and Argentina and from Florida and Texas, and we're going to go do this hotel. They're going to be 20 of us. It's going to be great. And I looked at him and I said, who's in charge? Who's coming from where? How are they getting trained? It's a difficult process. It's a very difficult process. Again, one of the things that Rabbi Talmud talks about is that he has a congregation where people can afford to go away for Pesach. And being a Dayan, and Dayanim do calculations that most of us never bother with. He made a cheshbon. The guy was taking his family and the grandkids. It was like 15, 20 people. Made a cheshbon what it's going to cost to take them. He said, for a lot less money, you can stay home. You could hire a crew to clean your entire house. You can hire people to do your shopping. You can hire chefs, straight up chefs to do the cooking and the cleaning. It'll cost you thousands less, and you'll have a much more kosher Pesach than any hotel you're going to go to. Sure. Follow up.
Your vitamin comment before, did you say, was that for Pesach, or did you say that all vitamins are edible as they are with the hechsher?
The question was, did I say all vitamins are edible without a hechsher? No, not really. But let me dig into my bag. Hang on a second. I want to hold a second. Sorry for the people on Zoom. Okay. So vitamins are a different category, but you remind me I want to mention this on medications. There are lists that come out for Pesach for what medicines are considered acceptable or not. Have it right here. I'm not a real big fan of those lists because the way most of them are done, you write letters to the companies, the manufacturers. Do you use X, Y, and Z in processing or in these items? And the quality assurance person writes back, and the answer is truthfully as they can. Do they take everything into consideration? Clearly not. Because they tell you what the normal answer is. No, we generally don't use this or that. Would you want to walk that bridge if that's how the engineer put the specs together? Probably not. But there are trubas which many Rabbanim, including some of our local Lubavitch Rabbanim, say is okay. This is also you can find on the Chicago Rabbinical website. And it says a pill or non-chewable tablet medication with or without chametz that you swallow is permitted. Vitamins and food supplements don't necessarily fall in that category, and you should personally ask your Rav. So one of the things that really sets me off almost yearly is that you generally find that in New York, not here, someone decides that they're going to be super frum, like, I can go a week without taking my medication. And the answer usually winds up being there are people that are not here Shavuos because they want to be a big shot Pesach. So, you shouldn't discontinue any medication for Pesach without speaking first to your doctor, if that's even in the realm of possibility. And if you need something to talk to Rav, don't wait for Erev Pesach to ask the questions about how to deal with this stuff. It amazes me that, for families where they didn't just have a mazel tov 3 days before Pesach, how come Erev Pesach you have a problem? What do you do with certain formulas or certain allergies your kid has? The kid didn't have this allergy for him. Why don't you give some heads up time that, you know, we can look at stuff and try to figure out how to help you. Same thing on medications. You're on the medication. I've been taking this for 5 years. Okay, so why do you have to wait till Erev Pesach to decide there's an issue here? You know, National Be Nice to Your Rabbi Month. Give them extra time.
So just a few follow-up questions from our audience in Zoom. Someone asked specifically that for vitamins, I use Garden of Life. Do they need a kasher for Pesach Hester?
Personal questions we should ask afterwards.
So next, those that are joining online, do you need to get a brand new water urn if it's only been used for water and it hasn't been in contact with a sponge or any such product to clean? Has not.
Has not. So urn meaning for hot water.
Yeah.
Yes. Anything oh yeah, what can you do? Anything that lives in the kitchen is guilty until absolutely proven innocent. How long does it live in the kitchen? If you cook chametz in the kitchen, anything that could be airborne.
It means if someone got married like just a couple of weeks ago, and they were very.
Mazel tov.
Theoretically.
Right. So if nothing got near the urn and you were actually keeping an eye on it for Pesach,
And there's no kids in the house yet.
okay, that makes sense. Theoretically, there are no kids in the house. Okay. If it's only the two of you and you kept an eye as to what's happening around the urn, doctor for Pesach, you could. Otherwise, I mean, would I? Probably not. Yeah, right. The normal answer is guilty till proven innocent.
In continuation with the products used in the kitchen,
Oh.
does cutlery cleaning products need to be kasher l'Pesach? Things that you use like soap, things that you use in your sink to clean.
Oh, clean products.
And cleaning.
Oh, okay. Does the soap need to be,
Pause we had tonight.
because the coffee's wearing off? They don't have to be marked kosher l'Pesach. There's a long list of soaps in. Is that it? No. In the ever famous OU Pesach guide, available online.
Or common person.
Yeah, for the common man. They used to call it the gray pages. Now they made the outline of those pages yellow. It's a long list of items that don't need special kosher l'Pesach designations. Included in that are lots of dish detergents. The major brands, Dawn, Palmolive, Ivory, whatever, the dish soaps, are all acceptable for use on Pesach.
Why does it even need to have a hechsher if it's not there? I don't know.
Because there's a concern, what if you have, it's not so much here, but grain alcohol in it doesn't make people terribly happy. But it's not edible. You try not to. So that's why you don't have to. It's a matter of what you want to use. Also, the ones that have some type of hashgacha, then there's also no animal fats in them. Glycerin is one of the favorite items to put into lots of products, including some soaps. Glycerin. And the places that have hashgacha or have arrangements, shall we call them, won't have animal-based glycerin in it. It's a matter to most processors what's cheaper when they're going shopping. Animals cheaper, you buy animal glycerin. Vegetables cheaper, you buy vegetable. So that actually segues into toothpaste. So all the lists have this toothpaste does not contain comments. This does not contain comments. Also, it's kosher. No, probably not. mean, Procter and Gamble made a promise to the OU. They said, we understand that you don't have to have ashgacha on toothpaste. You're allowed to brush your teeth with what, with animal fats and all sorts of stuff. We will not use animal fats in our personal care products. Even if it's going to cost us more, we will do that for the consumer. That being said, when you look at the various lists as to what toothpaste don't contain chametz, goods, they don't contain chametz. Doesn't mean that it's kosher. Oh, it's usually not. Also normally animal fat. So on the same famous letter, which is online, this is for the ladies, all varieties of blush, body soap, conditioners, creams, eyeshadow, eyeliner, foundations, ink, lotions, mascara, nail polish, ointments, paint, shampoo, and stick deodorant are permitted for use on Pesach, regardless of the ingredients contained therein. Right. Then there's, they go into all the stuff which you may want to look at.
Going into some questions related to different food items that we use.
Oh, finally.
So we have someone asked the following question, that if we have the custom of peeling all vegetables for Pesach, do we still need to peel vegetables, for example, peppers, which we grow in our very own backyard?
So if you have the custom of peeling fruits and vegetables, so anything that you're going to cook before Yontif, well, before you burn the chametz, you don't have to peel at all. Strawberries, tomatoes, what have you, potatoes. If you're peeling, then anything that after you burn the chametz, then yes, then those have to be peeled, even if it grew in your backyard. That's just how the minhag works.
Next question is regarding garlic. Why do we use garlic in Pesach?
Oh, getting juicy. So the base of the question is, you're right, garlic can clearly be made kosher to Pesach, and there's lots of kosher to Pesach garlic. Back in the day, before I was young, certainly in Europe and I guess in Russia, the custom was when they would dry the garlic, they would dry it either in chametz dika rooms, or the rooms would get coated, the shelves would get coated with flour, just so the garlic doesn't stick. Garlic is very sticky, and especially when it's peeled. So they asked the Rebbe about this and a few other things, and he said, listen, it's not shaykh anymore. It's not how it happens. And the Rebbe's answer, paraphrased, underline paraphrase, don't mess with Lubavitcher and Hagim. So the standard party line is we don't use garlic.
What if you didn't do it?
My wife's tired of hearing this. So people often ask, like, isn't Pesach great? We have all these minhagim and things that families do all the time, and it's warm memories. And I get depressed every time I hear it. We had gebrooks growing up. Matzah brai, matzah meal pancakes, all the good, what's Pesach without, it didn't exist without matzah meal pancakes, without matzah brai, with all this sort of stuff. We don't do it. If in your house, you grew up eating garlic, and you've done it all along, you've done it all along. You don't have to bring a Koren contest for this. It's a minhag that was never accepted in your family. Okay, it wasn't accepted in your family, but like I said, everyone has their own. Not only we don't buy anything except people other minhagim, we don't do this or that except. Some are more frightening than others. That's not frightening.
This is more of a theoretical question, but is genetically engineered grain still considered grain, or is there a point where this is considered like a new product and it can therefore be used on basic?
Good one.
So most of the genetically engineered items are treated as what it comes out to be in the end. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck,
We make a on a tomato that grows in a dish.
brachas on that stuff are arguments right and left. Vegetables that grow on coconut, right? That's not grown in the ground, or hydroponics. There are truths back and forth as to what you do if you romaine lettuce. Can you use it on the Seder plate if it grew hydroponically? And the maskana from the Rabbanim writing about it is ask your Rav. Ask your Rav. They duck that child. No.
Example type of whatever discussed it. What's an example of grain?
Lettuce. No, lettuce. Yeah, brachas have nothing to do with the materials of, do you use it, not use it, and how it was engineered.
Engineered, and it looks like grain, it's gonna have a bit of grain.
Right, so they're the genetically engineered meat that they're growing from who knows what, from nothing. No, not the impossible. The impossible is different. This is stuff where they actually grow it to mimic it. And those they're treated like fleischiks. There's a company making, they treat it as fleischiks.
And it's made out of what? What is it made out of?
I can't pronounce those.
You're saying it's chemicals?
No, chemicals. I mean, it's like for Zachen, right? So there's a fish company near San Diego that's doing. They start off with a couple cells from a fish, and they reproduce, thousands of pounds of fish, and everyone, including the FDA, treats it as fish, like an allergen-free fish.
Wow.
It's
Even though it didn't have it.
It has a few cells.
That's what we say, because the cells came from fish.
A couple of the cells, right?
The cells would come from a potato.
Well, yeah, usually pork, but comes from, it's the tubers I saw recently that talked about some of this meat was they're treating it as meat. Could be they'll change their minds when we understand it better. I don't know.
Another question from our online audience, going back to peeling. If your cousin is to peel fruits and vegetables on Pesach, can you boil the skin and then peel them off? Or do you need to peel them before they're even boiled?
If it's after Zman Isser, you'd have to peel it first. Sorry about that.
The egg is exception.
Eggs have an egg pot.
You boil the vegetables in egg pot?
You can boil eggs in the egg pot.
This is more of a general question we got. Did hashgacha practices change due to COVID?
Big time. So the question was, did hashgacha practices change because of COVID? So yes, this has been a particularly miserable year. How do you give hashgacha if you can't go somewhere? So you can either close your eyes and say, God is great, everything's good. But nobody did that. Happily, nobody did that. So the places that we could not get to, we did them on Zoom. Or the like, maybe not Zoom, maybe Skype, maybe Google Duo, what have you, with video cameras. Real time, and they'd walk you through, and it's an absolutely miserable experience. The reason it's miserable for most of us is that a lot of the factories, at least for the first half of last year, had very poor to no Wi-Fi in the production area. There was no need for it. So it was hard to see. It's hard to hear because of the background noise. You only get to see, where the camera is. Turn left, down, no, up, left, stop. Closer, can't read it. Oh. It's it's annoying and at best, right? So when there are places that we've been to, so you know what, you have a good idea what's where, what to expect, how it works. We may do. New places that applied, if they had any level of complexity to them, they were put on hold until someone could actually go there and get inside. So yes, it's been very difficult, very challenging. Happily, many areas let people in now. Northern California is slowly coming out of that mode. They're more restrictive than what we're finding in Southern California. But hopefully this will be a bad memory very soon.
Next question, does the type of mashkafa in China differ from that of the US? Do we say that we can't trust them, so more supervision is needed, or is it the same all over the world?
So Hashgacha is actually not based on do we trust you. It's based on what you can observe and what you can verify. That being said, if you have a company that you find is just not truthful people, they hide stuff, they don't tell the truth, they play a lot of games, they get dropped. It just, it creates a work environment that you just can't live with. So in China, the good news is a lot of the products that are made there are very simple from a kosher standpoint. But there are boots on the ground, mashgichim, a lot of them Chabadniks there that take care of the shgacha for all the major organizations. You're there, you can get in, they can get around. But we officially don't trust anybody.
Is there a problem with letters of certification, fraudulent?
Question is there a problem with fraudulent letters of certification? It's not really a problem because they get spotted pretty quickly. You can spot them pretty quickly. It's harder to counterfeit a $20 bill than a kosher letter. But the major agencies have digital systems with ID numbers per product. And not only can you use that to verify if the letter is accurate, when you build the list of approved ingredients that can be used in the factory, those numbers get added in. And when you can't match it up, all sorts of bells start ringing. Like, what is this?
There's no mirsas built into Hashgacha? You say,
No, there is mirsas.
so that was the question, like, maybe in those countries, they're not afraid of it.
Right. So mirsas is, how afraid are they of you coming in and catching them red-handed? So I've never been to China. My understanding that in the Chinese culture, it's very important that you as a guest should be happy. So your host is very happy to tell you a bull-faced lie to make you happy, because it's a novel not to be happy. This is how they operate, right? So that's why you have visits more frequently there. There are differences, right? There are differences also. If we have a problem with a company, even domestically, that can get them more visits. If you're raising eyebrows, like you're not sure what's happening, this and that. There are companies that we've dropped that just, you're not worth the heartache. Which, there was a guy in LA, this is a few years back already. He had a contract to sell some stuff to one of the divisions of Coca-Cola. So here's this guy making a retail product, and they were buying his product in bulk, by truckloads. That's 5,000 gallons at a shot. And he was, the product itself had no issues. Getting into the plant and getting around the plant was extremely difficult. They would lock the gates, they would lock the doors, you can't come in, the guy's not here. We don't care about the fire marshal if our employees are locked in, it's not, back and forth. And it got to the point where we said, like, why are we exerting so much energy for this? I said, the contract says normal operating hours, the rabbi can come in. It's really it's simple. It's either you do it or you don't. And this guy was told, like, no, it's my factory. I make the rules and you do it my way. So the long story short is that they put a call to Coca-Cola and said, how desperate are you for this supplier? Because we're having problems. And they said, no, we're not desperate at all. Party was over.
There's someone online that wants to say, share a question.
Okay.
Myman, go ahead.
Shalom, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very lowly. Go ahead.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I have two questions which are really one question. I'm wondering why the OUDE dairy equipment certification was discontinued. Kanoda, there are many people who hold by DE, and I find myself now where I'm looking at, and it's so funny because it happened literally half an hour ago, where I'm eating chicken, I want to eat them with crackers. I see it says DE. There's no dairy equipments. There's no dairy ingredients. I apologize. And it says dairy free and vegan and paleo and all these things. And I refrain. Although my tradition is that I do eat with dairy equipment. And so I found myself sometimes with dark chocolate that I called the company and I said, I see that it says DE on the dark chocolate.
So the question is, why in the OU? Why was the OUDE certification? Why did they stop doing that? He said that he had accustomed to eat dairy equipment and now it's unclear.
Okay, so it's a very popular question. People get asked a lot, why do we stop? OU stop using DE? The question is backwards. Why did the OU start using the DE? So the OK, the CHUF-K had DE designation, OU did not. A couple straight, it did not exist in our system. Question came up, feels like yesterday, probably 5 years ago. Do we want to start using DE then? So we started looking. DE, dairy equipment, means that the equipment was cleaned but not koshered back to Parav. And when we looked at a lot of stuff that would be marked DE, the equipment wasn't clean enough. It was, there's enough stuff left over that it wouldn't qualify. So there was a decision that, nah, we're not going to do it. Fast forward a couple of years, and we got a request from a major company that said, we want to switch over to OU for whatever our reasons are. We have to have the ability to write DE. Okay, so they agreed. So there are limited DEs in the OU system. Do we like it? We don't really like it. For the reason I said, because it's difficult to keep up with how clean it's clean. Some products work out better than others for that. So if it's also, there's a lot of confusion on the consumer. What do you do with the DE product? Is it part of, is it not part of? So it's not part of. It's not straight up part. Part of means you can stick it into your hamburger or you can melt cheese on it and you're good either way. So the DE it's something that's processed hot on equipment that was used for dairy and not koshered. So for the Chabadics in the crowd, we don't do DE from Chalab Stam. We would do DE from Chalab Yisrael, but you almost never see it. So I'm not sure what you're looking for in the other diets, but if you read, if you read some of the labels and you think that this probably might, this could qualify, you think, as DE, and maybe the company didn't want to mess with it, you could call the OU office, and with a lot of patience, they can usually get an answer for you. But in some cases, if you see natural flavors in there, sometimes those flavors contain dairy. Or there are other things in there that, you wouldn't necessarily, it may not contain an allergen to get listed or not have to be listed. The labeling laws are very complex, but you can always ask the question.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Speak a little bit of, like, you have a question?
Spices.
Spices only basic salt and pepper, not other.
Right.
Another question about mushroom.
Right. How about one question time, because I'm not going to remember. So the first question is spices. So, question is why don't we use lots of spices or various spices? It falls generally in the, if you mean Chabad, or is that normal people use it? The royal we, okay. Normal people use spices. So Chabad, we generally don't. It's part of the limiting the number of products that you buy that are not prepared in your home. I am probably the guy you don't want to ask about, can you buy regular spices for Pesach? McCormick was one of the plants I used to visit, every month for many years until we changed routing. And in your average spice company, when you switch from one product to the next, how good do you have to clean up? How well do you have to clean, excuse me? So the answer to that is you have to clean well enough that whatever residual, whatever's left over in the equipment won't affect the color, taste, or performance of the next product. It doesn't have to be clean. It just can't mess up what you're going to run next. So you normally would run single spices before you start running blends. Normally. What happens when there's an order that has to go out or an order came in late? You can switch. There are lots of blends that have chametz in it. So now you can wind up having residual of chametz in the equipment. They're in the buckets, not cleaned up very well, cleaned up well enough that it won't mess up what you're going to run next. But you could have actual chametz in your spices. So I'm a very strong proponent that if you're going to use spices, they should be stuff that's made for Pesach. Also, other spices, some spices are sprayed with oils to make them look nice. Especially whole spices you grind at home. Black pepper gets sprayed with oil.
These oils can be at least kidneys.
Yeah, at least kidneys. Right. There was, okay, side story. Got a call. It was kind of like, the call was really an afterthought, I think, from Hasidic Rav from back east, who said that, we're going to be making walnut oil at such and such factory. Okay, be my guest, And he said, you said I should tell you that we're going to go there because if you bring a different hashgacha into your factory, you're supposed to let us know. I said, okay, that's fine. Do you want me to send a mashgiach for this, for Pesach? No, it's just crude oil. You don't have to. Okay, your hashgacha, do what you want. There's a long pause, and he said, why would you ask me that? I said, I don't know. If you're making for Pesach, you wouldn't want a mashgiach present? You're not kosher anything beforehand? There's nothing to kosher from. It's only kidneys. I'm sorry, but why do you say it's only kidneys oils there? I have their letter of certification in my hand. Every oil on here is kidneys. Yeah. And what about the wheat germ oil? It's not so kidneys. Right. So he says, they don't make wheat germ oil. Yeah, actually they do. It's not in the letter. They don't make it. It's not in the letter because the client wasn't interested in kosher, so they didn't bother to add it. They had one client for it. He didn't care. So, okay, good. You won't fill out the paperwork. It doesn't cost him any more to add it, but why bother? There was a long pause on the phone. He said, thank you, and he hangs up. The next day, the salesman at that oil company is screaming bloody murder. They canceled their order. I mean, to their credit, the Hasidic cancels his order for Pesach. Why did you tell him? I said, I offered the kasha, having someone go kasha the place for you, just like you do, other times of the year when you do Pesach oils. And anyhow, they dropped that oil. Oh, I'm sorry. Second part.
Next question. Ask you. Understand that many people avoid using mashka on top of it. Only wine, but not.
Mashka. Why don't we do? There's a custom not to drink hard alcohol during Pesach. Is it across the board? No, there's certainly lots of people do, and the OU certainly makes a wide range of hard alcohol. Hasidim generally, I don't know, it's across the board. Chabad for sure doesn't. So it's all this is minhag based. So in Chabad we don't drink hard alcohol during Pesach. We make up for it the rest of the year. So the related question is, people say, I have potato vodka. Why can't I use it for Pesach? Because a lot of the places, two reasons. One, the places that do the potato vodka might do grain vodka. And fermentation science is great when everything works well. Fermentation science. Making mashka. It's wonderful when everything works the way it's supposed to. How do you fix a problem? One way of fixing the problem is adding high proof alcohol if it didn't come out right. And that would be either kitnius alcohol or grain alcohol, depending who the source is. No, I'm sorry, that's the reason why you wouldn't want to use it on Pesach without supervision. Yep. More matzah.
When you buy small matzah, there is no dates, and you don't know if it's from BC and Latvia 5 years ago. If it's very old, doesn't mean
So if it's 5 years old, it's clearly Yashin. It's Yashin flour. Yashan, right? Mold is not chametz, right? No, so there's New York and I think a couple other states actually have laws that say you must write the year of manufacture on matzah. The decade, right? Yeah. I don't know if California has that regulation or not, but generally, if matzah is made for the New York market, so the stuff the shirayim that they send out here would also should now have a year of manufacture on it.
We say, this is the bread that we ate in Egypt. We say it.
This right, that is the bread.
Close, the older the close.
What?
3 years and 3 years old could be.
no 3,000 years old.
3,000 years old. Yeah, it could be 3,000 years old. You couldn't tell by looking at it.
Came from Egypt.
Very good.
All right, thank you,
That's
Rabbi
it?
Nathanson.
Got off easy.
Thank you for coming,
Thank you.
answering all of our questions, and may we all be zecher that through doing all the preparations, when we married to prepare, prepare for the carbon paste that's coming up. We remember all together to go to Yerushalayim and Rabbi Nathanson.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Shkoyach Rabbi Nathanson. Rabbi Nathanson, can you,
Rabbi, thank you for all those online that joined us. If you have any other questions, please feel free to contact your local rabbi. Don't wait till the last second.
Shkoyach, Reb Mendel.
All right, shkoyach everyone. Everyone have a great night. Thank you for joining us.